So Joe Biden's transition team, headed up by Ted Kaufman, is already signaling and planting seeds that they're going to be breaking their promises and embracing austerity if they win the election in November. And this is important because Kaufman, as the head of the transition team, is going to be far more responsible for what happens after November if Biden wins than anything said on the campaign trail, where lies aplenty will be told by Trump and Biden, and the transition teams will actually indicate what's going to happen. And what he said to the Wall Street Journal is very telling. He says, when we get in, the pantry is going to be bare. When you see what Trump has done to the deficits he has built with the incredible tax cuts, we're going to be limited. And basically, that's a hint. That's a signal to Wall Street. That's a signal to the capitalist class. That's a signal to the 1% that all the spending promises we've been making, however modest they've been compared to Bernie, however inadequate they've been, because even Biden, if he keeps all of his promises, will not do enough for working class people. Regardless of all of that, they're planning to break those promises and use the deficit, use Trump mismanagement as an excuse. And I don't doubt that Trump has mismanaged, but clearly they're trying to say that when Biden said we're going to have a public option, when Biden said we're going to invest in cheaper and maybe partially free post-secondary education, whenever we've said all of these things, we didn't mean them. And the excuse we're going to use is Trump did such a bad job running the country. I'm sorry, working class people. We can't keep your promises. Of course, there's no discussion here about fully reversing those tax cuts, and that helps to cover the deficit. There's no discussion about having even higher tax increases on the rich if necessary to offset the deficit, at least temporarily. So maybe Biden, if he has to break a promise, it's that he's going to raise taxes even higher than he's promising. That's not what they mean. What they really mean is every promise to regular working class and middle class Americans can and will be broken, and Trump will be blamed. This is standard neoliberal austerity politics. Run on progressive expansions and then govern, and you cut and you slash like the Republicans did, and you blame them. And the Republicans would do the same thing. They'll say that, oh, we wanted to invest more in society, but we couldn't because the Democrats have put us in such a debt trap. It's the right, center-right cycle of politics, and we have it here in Canada as well, actually. But what's crucial to note here is that some key Democratic voices are pushing back against this narrative. First, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Twitter said the following in response to this quote. This is extremely concerning. The pantry is absolutely not bare. We need massive investment in our country or it will fall apart. This is not a joke. To adopt GOP deficit hawking now, when millions of lives are at stake, is utterly irresponsible. Hold the line, win, and lead. And to follow that, Jamal Bowman, who's an incoming congressman after defeating a corporate Democrat in a primary, he said, the pantry is not bare. It was not bare to give trillions to bail out the airline and cruise industry or Wall Street or Trump's tax cuts or for funding the forever wars. It will not be bare to invest in the American people we have ignored for decades. Be bold, be visionary. And this is important, and this goes against what I've been hearing from some people on YouTube and in other left spaces about how we have to refrain from criticizing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Because if we don't criticize them, we will not be on the front foot to oppose them if they win in November. Now, that criticism must be good faith, and that criticism must not come at the expense of criticizing Trump and Pence even harder. But the criticism must be there, because let's be real. Joe Biden is already planning for the post-election, and so the left must do the same. That doesn't mean take it for granted. That doesn't mean assume that Joe Biden has got a 100% chance of winning. But it is to say that some of our mental and physical and intellectual resources and our discourse resources must be dedicated to opposing Biden and Harris now. Not silencing ourselves to become disingenuous cheerleaders. Because again, Ted Kaufman is leading the transition team. This is the real indication of what will happen if Biden wins. They're going to back down from their promises. They've already started. Last week, there were nondescript insiders. It wasn't tied to Kaufman directly, but it was Biden insiders saying he doesn't really support the public option. That's a 10-year down the road thing. Right now, he just wants to get us back to Obamacare status quo. Now, that's not what he's running on, but that's what the insiders are indicating will happen if he wins. And so the left needs to be clear that we do not support this. Because if we don't say that, we're in effect endorsing Biden's strategy. And when he wins, we will look foolish and cynical and disingenuous when we instantly on a dime start to oppose him. It's time to criticize Biden now, especially when he doesn't keep up to his own promises. It's one thing to criticize him for not going with Medicare for all. He didn't run on it. That's the fact of the matter. He should still support Medicare for all, and we should still call on him to do it every single day because it's what the American people deserve and need. But at the very least, we should be especially demanding that he keep his own promises. When he promised a public option, he needs to at least deliver a public option. When he promised, cheaper education, maybe not on the Bernie level, we have to at least keep him to that promise. When he promised to end right to work, we need to keep him to that promise. We cannot allow them to have free rein on us, pulling back the platform while we stay silent as cheerleaders for Biden and Harris. We have to keep fighting now. And I'm glad to see AOC and Jamal Bowman do that, although we all have to chip in.